Hello, my name is Valerie Ramirez, and I did my cultural case study on Jose Clemente Orozco. I chose Jose Clemente Orozco due to his powerful and boldness impact on art and society. From learning about him throughout this research project, I really learned one thing I learned about him was that he was a very bold and upfront artist throughout his pieces, and that's something I really admired about him. I feel like in today's world, in today's society, not many influencers can speak on whatever their mind is on or speak on their true thoughts. I feel like nowadays you just really have to say what they think people will agree with, and I feel like that kind of ruins the purpose of being an influencer, or like even just like through artists still to this day, even like not even just like artists who are painters, but even like artists musically. I feel like not many people are very courageous to say what they think is right, or to say what's right, or to really just advocate for what's right. And that's one thing that Orozco did do throughout his pieces, which was something I very much admired. I also really liked his honest depictions of human struggles such as war, injustice, oppression, and oppressions. Through many of his pieces, they very much spoke on topics such as wars and just like society, more like social problems. His work really inspires critical and emotional thinking, which I feel like resonated with me and my future career in nursing. Um, some lessons from Orozco was throughout his pieces, he really just his main ideas within his pieces were just using your word to raise awareness and really just advocating for others, and like I mentioned in the beginning, just really confronting the truth. So within his early life, Orozco was born in November 23rd in 1883 in Zapotlan, El Grande, which is a city in Jalisco, Mexico. He moved to Guadalajara in 1890 with his family, and when he made that move to Guadalajara with his family, he was exposed to the city life, more political tension, and a very much cultural change. But as he made that move to Guadalajara was where his inspiration for art really sparked, which was through this young man right here in this picture, whose name is Jose Guadalupe Posada. And basically, Orozco in his young childhood life, as he would walk to school, he would always pass by Posada's workshop, where he would see him working on pieces, such as this one down here was actually one of his pieces. And it really sparked Orozco's interest in social commentary and paintings. At the age of 21, in his young adolescent life, Orozco lost his left hand due to a firework accident while celebrating the Independence Day for Mexico. And it was found in one of the sources that I wrote in my paper that the loss of his hand, although it was a very tragic accident, it really shaped his determination and his artistic perspective. Um, Also, in his early life, what kind of inspired the main purposes and main ideas of his pieces were what he witnessed in Mexico, which was things such as political instability, injustice, and poverty, and that really influenced his socially critical art. Um, he grew up in a very simple life with his mother and mom. They did struggle financially growing up. His father was actually a businessman, while his mother was a harpist, and she tried to play whenever she could just to like pitch in some money. But one thing that was encouraged in their home was education. So Orozco was encouraged to go to school and was encouraged to pursue his dreams. His education and achievements, he originally was majored or studied agronomy at the agricultural school of San Jacinto, but then he later pursued formal art at the Academy of San Carlos. So he was originally studying to be an agricultural worker, but he then made the decision that it wasn't for him, and he really just wanted to pursue that itching of working in as an artist and working in the art fields. um, Once he finished school, he began his career as a political caricaturist. He then moved to the United States at 43 years old in 1927, where his career just basically began it all. In the US, he was recognized as a leading muralist of the Mexican government's post-revolution, and in the US was where his biggest, greatest pieces were created. So we first have Prometheus, which was created in 1930 at Pomona College, and this piece was actually created in the dining room at Pomona College. And Orozco's main point for this one was this piece just really symbolized how the importance of passing knowledge onto others is very important, and how power is kind of abused by that given knowledge, and also just it really focused on human enlightenment and how that can be abused as well. Another big piece of his was the Epic of American Civilization, and this one was painted at Dartmouth College and this one actually took 2 years to create, from 1932 to 1934. And this one, as you can see down here, it was a long mural, and it took 2 years to make. And this piece really focused on kind of the views that people thought, or how they viewed the Mexican Civil War and World War I. So it really just focused on how indigenous and European people looked at the wars, or how they felt about the wars, such as fear or worries. And it was a really big piece, and I really liked about this piece was how you can kind of see the difference of where you would see World War I and the Mexican Civil War, and that's one thing I really admired about his piece. Some interesting facts about him was that Orozco was a very private and introverted person, and I feel like you could kind of get a sense of that through his pieces. I feel like, well, at least to me, I feel like more talented artists are the ones who are more to themselves. I don't know why I always think that about artists, but he very much avoided public attention. Within his religious worldviews, while there was nothing I could really find specifically focused on that, he was very skeptical of religion, and instead of really believing in something or believing in a specific religion, he really just focused on human struggles and universal sufferings, and how he could help advocate or speak out for those people. Before his career began as a muralist, he briefly worked as a government map maker. As I mentioned earlier, he did lose his hand at 21 due to a fireworks incident, which led him to only paint with only one hand his entire career, which is kind of insane to me, making these beautiful pieces with only one hand. So that's pretty amazing. Another thing about him was that he believed art should confront reality and not idolize views. And he was also known as part of Los Tres Grandes, alongside Diego Rivera and David Alfaro Siqueiros. So these three men down here were actually known as the Big Three, the biggest muralists in Mexico. On the right side we have Diego Rivera, in the middle we have Jose Clemente Orozco, and then on the left side right here we have David Alfaro Siqueiros. Diego Rivera is actually also known as being Frida Kahlo's husband, which was the first way I found out about him, was through Frida Kahlo. In my I'm from Guanajuato, and he's very big in my city and my town of Mexico. So I thought that was pretty cool to find out that they all had some connection together, and they were all known as the three big muralists in Mexico. And moving on to influence and legacy, Orozco died September 7th of 1949 in Mexico City. He left a lasting influence on muralism, social commentary, and cultural exchange. He had a huge inspiration, not only in America, but on American artists such as Jackson Pollock, Jacob Lawrence, and Thomas Hart Benton. Jackson Pollock is the young man up here in the left-right corner. Jacob Lawrence, this is one of his pieces, and Thomas Hart Benton is the bottom one, and that's one of his pieces as well. And as I researched this and I actually was searching up some of their pieces, I kind of saw a resemblance of how similar the pieces between theirs and Orozco's kind of look. You can kind of see within Lawrence's how his is kind of just like more kind of like sharp and edgy, but you can also see within Benton's pieces how it's just more like merged, how we saw in the the big mural that Orozco created. So I thought that was kind of cool, seeing how their pieces all kind of connected together. But Orozco's murals did remain as historical landmarks and educational resources in Mexico and America. And his legacy was just art as a tool for reflection and critical and emotional thinking, and just for social awareness. So researching about Orozco was actually very nice. I learned a lot of things I didn't really know about him. When I first researched him, I wasn't too sure about who he was. The first thing I noticed about him was that he was connected to Diego Rivera, so I figured he was going to be someone big. But after researching him, I learned a lot, and I actually learned of how important he was to the Mexican culture and to Mexico. So I was very privileged to learn about him. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.